Hey, I'm a little late, but let's get started. Welcome to the G Spot Live, my loves. We are going to get started as I invite each week, as I normally do. And it's my intention to talk to you today about creating your tipping point. However, your she magic tipping point. And of course, we're going to run on and see what the end is going to be in terms of spirit, because I give way to that energy to come through. I invite it. In fact, I declare and decree myself to the ability, the intention, the willingness to move out of the way so that exactly that can happen, because the Quran says we plan a plan and God plans a plan, and God is the best planner. And so no matter what I already have planned in terms of content, most of the time it goes out of the window anyway for me. And so, I stopped fighting that. For a long time, I tried to do the formulas and that type of thing, but there's a lot of peace in the art of being yourself and showing up as yourself, and unapologetically showing up as yourself. And so today I hope I get a chance to just take us to another consideration, because I love the fact that so many women in this tribe are busy building, rebirthing, and creating. That's a good point of why I want to talk about living from this place and creating in love, sex, and money with you today, because even that right there opens the way. I've often read this particular passage that talks about the difference between building and birthing, and it's a beautiful passage, and it's my intention to slide on over here and grab it to share with you again today in your remembrance. But how y'all doing? If you're coming in the room, just tell me, how are you doing? Mercury has gone direct. So a lot of the work that you all were doing in this Mercury retrograde and before, you will start to see the remnants of that. However, we are in a Gemini moon, and the Gemini moon shows up as quick changes. Quicksilver is what it should be known as, kind of like Mercury. Mercury is known as quicksilver. So the energy to make quick changes, and it may seem like it's an interruption or out of the blue, but keep in mind, some of you who were doing your work, you were already laying seeds and foundation for this. So when you are in your own process and aware of it, and you're setting intention, some of these things start to come to you less as a surprise and more as an expectation. And so you start to realize, oh, this shit really does work. So I won't be long in front of you today. You can actually use your own time to do a little research. But those of you who are in business, I think, and particularly or still working in your marriage and your love life, that type of thing, you'll find great solace in something called a tipping point. And I believe it's Malcolm Gladwell, but there's a whole book that talks about it. And basically the work that you have done or are doing, it starts to build up momentum, and you really do plant the seeds. And it's about an 80-20 rule, right? You basically are doing about 20% of whatever the formula your industry calls for, or even the process is calling for. You continue to work it and seed it. Hey, everybody, you can continue to work it and seed it until you start to build up this momentum. Now, while you are working and seeding anything, sometimes you don't have evidence that that particular thing is working, that it's taking root. In fact, it may even sometimes look like you are starting all over again. Am I the only one that's ever been there? Don't leave me out here. Am I the only one that's ever been in a position where it feels like you're starting over? In fact, sometimes in relationships, you can get to a place where you've made so much progress in your relationship. One thing is said, one thing is done, one thing, just say the one thing. And that one thing can feel like it's a setback. It can feel like it's a pause in what it is that you have started or created, the pause and the setback. But oftentimes it actually can be what the book of Psalms call a Selah, a divine pause, a divine pause. Sometimes when we're on a track, you will have little interruptions, but when you keep on going in the direction and building one thing at a time, one moment at a time, 1 hour at a time. So one of the things that we have to be careful with is our impatience. And so let me, just tell you, I just jumped in there in terms of remedy and solution because, again, I know that many of you are on your path. You've seen it. You've gotten close to it. You're ready to take your next step. And we're in the She Magic coaching clinics. We're getting ready now to close out our focus on money, She Magic money, and having options for ways to distribute our savings. So those who are investing in strategic ways, you are continuing to get solutions for investing your savings and being able to know that this is real. The thing about it is, even when we talk about creating a tipping point where you start to see results from your savings, you start to see results from your small efforts, because a lot of times we start out with the mindset that I don't have. Most of us are so focused on what we don't have and what we have to get. It leaves us as women in a state of wanting, never enough. And wanting comes from an energy and a belief in lack. And wanting will drive you crazy because you want this, you want that. And so what happens is your energy starts to focus on the fact that you don't have it. And so when you enter into processes, and your process could be private. Hi, love. Thank you for saying hello. When you enter into processes that start to open you up, it feeds your faith. Just like in the Bible, it says faith comes by hearing the word of God. What word of God? A lot of times we've been taught that it's through the preacher. But when we hear the word of our sisters and their testimony, their pleasure reports, their praise reports, the openings that are happening in our lives, it feeds our faith. And that's why it's powerful to be in a tribe of women who are progressive, who are dedicated. In fact, it kind of opened up a conversation for many of those who are in the Juicy Spirit alumna community, is that it's when you get turned on, when you get tuned in, when you get tapped into a part of your own feminine self, when you start to tune in, you fellowship with other women, you become much more conscious of how often we have lived turned off. Living from the turn on place is not the normal for many of us. So therefore, when we see people having success in any area of our life, particularly love, sex, or money, or any area of our life that we're looking to manifest, a lot of times we think, what about me? Come on, I know I'm not the only one who has been faithful in my service to God, faithful in my service to my vision, faithful in my service to growth, and feels like other people are winning and I'm struggling or straining or stretching so much that sometimes you start to ask the question, what's wrong with me? Well, that right there is one of the beliefs that we may be called to give up, is the idea that something is wrong, that when we're in the process that we have to believe that something is wrong. And something starts to shed when you start to give up the things that are so comfortable in the mind. There are thoughts that we have repeated to ourselves over and over again that become comfortable. And it's hard to believe when someone starts to tell you or to process with you that the work is deeper within. And so I have one simple remedy in terms of the tipping point, only because I'm seeing the evidence of a tipping point in my life that is making me run phone calls that are spontaneous phone calls out of what's seemingly out of the clear blue of another shift, another divine elevation that I could not have planned. But I asked myself, well, nothing just happened. Something has to be a catalyst for these things to happen. I got so many things that I want to tell you. I can't wait. Well, I have to, because of divine order. But what I'm saying to you is, I knew about the tipping point before I saw the tipping point. I knew about the process of the tipping point in faith before I had any evidence that I would hit a tipping point. And I'm feeling confident in my own tipping point. I love the word tipping point because I see my cup being full to the running over. And I want you to be able to see your cup being full to the running over. For many of us who have chosen the rites of passage or any of the other feminine processes that I create, you are starting to see the tipping point happening in your life. Some of you go away and you come back, you have to digest the fact that you are that potent. Sometimes it takes a minute to get your mind around how potent you are. I have a testimony from Kathy Iverson who that will be posted publicly, and I think it's so powerful when she started talking about in this video, and you'll see it, about succulent success, the ones who are saving and are part of this process that we're doing in the coaching clinic. She said, I started off believing in broke. And many of us, come on, look, I don't see a whole lot of comments because I believe Facebook is doing a delay today, one of those delays. But you can just put a number 1 because maybe you weren't broke in your pocketbook, your wallet, or your bank account. But the belief in being broken will create more broken experiences. You will, and then that becomes true for you. And so the universe requires a demonstration. When you say that you're up to something, a lot of times the tendency is to pull back or to say that your plate is full. I can't do it. And I told you that the greatest lesson that I learned, well, there are 2 greatest lessons that I'm offering today in terms of staying the course on your path is, 1, the demonstration. Sometimes you do get to, it looks like an investment. Sometimes it looks like paying it forward. It looks like saying yes when you have a tendency to say no more than you say yes to things, because you consult your limitations that are showing up instead of consulting your promise to yourself, or your decree to yourself, or the reading you had, or the encouragement that you may have received, or the feedback that you have been suggested to stay on the path. Trust me, I have been in my life the greatest obstacle on my journey. I have been the greatest obstacle with my own stubbornness and resistance at times to myself, not being able to see what other people sometimes could see in me. But baby, wait until you do see it. And it's a humbling place. It's not the haughty place that you may even think or imagine. In fact, when you start to see the evidence of your own tipping point, there's something that is very serene and serendipitous that begins to happen where you chill out. There's like, oh, okay, and it makes you pray more. It makes you give more. It makes you a lot more patient and tolerant, sometimes with even the intolerable, but at the same time, you can rise up and have those boundaries. So what's the one thing? The one thing, just like there is the one thing that can be the distraction to take you off course, just like there is the one thing that can slow you down or turn you around. Just like there's the one thing, there's always the one thing that is the solution. There is the one thing that is the entry point or the access point that sometimes we have a tendency to overlook. There is the one thing that will turn us around as well in the direction towards the vision. What is the one thing? I'm so glad you asked, because I see that Facebook again is delaying, but that's okay. What's the one thing? I promise you that it seems so simple. It seems like it's reduced to woo-woo. And a lot of times our feminine has become so masculine. Oh, thank you, Zoha. Our feminine has become so masculine that we actually don't believe. The scripture says, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. And many of us as women have not had enough reference points to believe in our feminine, in our healing, because sometimes it gets messy, the healing process. It gets painful. It puts a mirror in your face. But that one thing that I have found that has been creating a tipping point, and I'm talking, the tipping point seems like it comes out of nowhere. But I want to encourage you, because your tipping point is coming. And when it comes, you want to be in position. You want to be ready for it. You want to be the catalyst for that tipping point. And it simply is this, what Joseph Campbell said: follow your bliss. Follow your bliss. Now that quote is actually longer. I could do a little tapping over here to pull it in. But how did I get here? How did I get to this point? Besides of what I've already been sharing with you all in terms of step 1, step 2, do this, do that. Because at different times I've done everything that I've come in here and I've shared with you. Sometimes I hear your stories, my story inside of your story, and my story is still unwritten. The rest is still unwritten. Hi, my love. And your story is still unwritten. The rest of it, I don't care how much visioning you do, how much planning you do, there's a part that's still unwritten. A lot of us are still trying to duplicate what we see. Social media is playing. The fact, I have to talk about social media because this is where we hang out, and there's a part of it that is not real. And so we start to compare, put pressure on ourselves, look at ourselves as not being good enough or moving fast enough in the direction of a particular product, service, relationship, because we look at other people who may be posting pictures or posting this of their products, their services, their bank account statements, and all of these different things, and so we like, okay, I want to go do what they're doing. I want more of this. And so a lot of times we become emotional hoarders, and we're hoarding here and there, and we're stacking up the information, but we're not doing anything with it. But when you start to do something with it, when you start to do that demonstration, right? When you start to do that demonstration, and the demonstration is not just one demonstration. The farmer does not plant one seed, and when that seed does not grow, that they're like, I ain't planting no more. You keep on planting seeds and tilling your soil, but a lot of times we're trying to be on somebody else's land, the land that you did not inherit, or we're still trying to use somebody else's resources. And I know that this is counterintuitive. I know that sometimes the feminine chooses more of the slow route. It feels more like honey. Oshun honey, baby. Oshun's honey is different. Oshun, everybody talks about the Oshun honey and wants to have the sweet experiences of Aphrodite or Lakshmi of abundance, right? That goddess is the one that we want, the orgasms, the sexual pleasure, the turn on, the flowing. But there is a part of Oshun's story that we don't know, because we're just falling in love with the commercial aspects of what we hear and what we see. But there was a period of time where Oshun was walking the journey alone. There was a time when Oshun was like the woman at the well. She did things that she was not, quote unquote, sanctioned to do by man, in order to keep alive something in her bloodline. And so there is something inside of you that when you get ready to do something, there's an old gospel song that says, I'll go if I have to go by myself. If my mother don't go, sister don't go, father don't go, I'll go if I have to go by myself. And Lord knows, sometimes you wonder, why do I have to do it? Why do I have to be the one to be awakened? Why do I have to be the one to forgive? Why do I have to be the one to tell this story when everybody else is keeping silent and pretending like it didn't exist? Why do I have to be the one to ask the questions that my mother didn't even ask, that my grandmother didn't even ask? Why do I have to be the one? My question to you is, why not be the one? Would you like to recommend somebody else? Who would you recommend other than you? Who would you recommend be the one to be the answer to the prayers of your grandmother? Who would you like to recommend be the one to be the one who stands up, as Reverend Cynthia taught in ReBirth Sunday? Will the real woman please stand up? Because what we have done a lot of times is put the responsibility on somebody else to come and save us, or that we know it all. But what if your mother's mother was the one who said a prayer for you, or the one before that? Even if your mother did not have the capacity, or your father did not have the capacity, if you keep on focusing on the deficit, then we continue to have deficit living, and deficit life, and deficit love, and deficit orgasms, and deficit sex, and deficit relationships, and deficit relating, and deficit communication, if we continue to do that. But there's a place of abundance in following your bliss. And so, yes, there are preachers who can preach the scriptures, but I hope that when you come in here on Wednesday, that you keep on hearing certain themes of you staying the course of what it is that you are awakening, what it is that you're activating, what it is that you are called to do, even if it's just do you first. Because a lot of times we are trying to do somebody else, and we're calling it something else. And I didn't even know, again, until I started to really shift a lot of the beliefs that I was holding on to, even as a woman who had been married. I had to look at the fact that I got married because I had put myself on not this marriage, but I was on a timeline in my mind. After I lost my father, I thought, okay, well, I better go on and get this done. See, I knew that I was a manifester. I knew that I was pretty damn good at having it turn out, having the vision and having it turn out. That journey birthed in me the relationship with the feminine, because my womb began to speak to me, to reveal to me areas that I had not healed, and areas that were still needing my attention. Even in relationships. I'll give you a few clues, sisters. I get a little deeper into this in our processes, but I'm just going to give a few clues. A lot of times we could just take something as simple as our menstrual cycle. Something as simple as our menstrual cycle. And a lot of times we will have pain in our menstrual cycle that we live with. There'll be pain. So for me, I noticed as a very young bride that I would have this discomfort and these mood swings, sometimes more of when I ovulated than when I was menstruating. Okay. And I thought that was weird, but I didn't have enough information to know to give it some attention. I didn't have enough information to understand how the womb speaks and communicates with us, not just for sex and pleasure or pain and triage, but it communicates a lot of the things that we are holding on to. I wasn't aware. But then when I started to do more of to activate more of the feminine intelligence, I started to see and hear where my body was leaving clues, my pain left clues, my meltdowns was telling me information about me. It was all there all along, but a lot of times we haven't had a translator. And so, this is the work that I feel very, very empowered around sharing over and over again, each one teach one, until we look up and we see it in our economic development. We see it in our families, in the type of children that are aware of this information and the tools that they have to process themselves without us, and the girls and our daughters who are no longer carrying the generational pain and the generational womb messages that we have had to carry. And that is that work of feminine soul retrieval for me is powerful. It took me a long time to even know what it was. So, I encourage you that the tipping point is juicy. The tipping point is not something always that you can plan. And it does require first a yes. A yes, I will walk this journey. Yes, I will answer the call, the whisper, the tug and the pull on my heart to do it different, to show up different. After I started to realize the level of self-betrayal that my belief system allowed me to create in my life, when I looked at the self-betrayal, there was so many layers. It takes a lot for a woman to recover from self-betrayal, honey. And oftentimes it is when hey, Veronica, thank you for joining. In fact, I want you all to meet Veronica. If you're in a position where you got a signal, I would love to close out this little nugget that I've left in here today about the tipping point, because Veronica's story, is so freaking amazing. If I would love to bring her on camera, and if we can't do it today, maybe we'll plan for it next week, because I want you to be encouraged, because there's some of you who have been in positions where you don't have a place to live. There's some of you who have been in position where you've lost everything because of a divorce. Remember, I said that sometimes your tipping point will look like moments where you feel like you are starting over. Your tipping point will look like you are moving forward, and all of a sudden you'll have a memory. And hey, sister, good to see you, Dana. You'll have a memory, but that's your healing. A healing crisis is a part of it. Okay, good. We'll have you next week. We'll talk about that. Because your tipping point is that you stay the course and you don't cancel out any of your efforts towards your vision for love, your vision for your body, your vision for your money, your vision for your sexuality. Because even those of you who are chasing orgasms, and if you come into Even Juicy to chase your orgasm, trust me, baby, and trust your orgasm. It will minister to you. Your desire for that orgasm is beyond the physical. Your desire for that relationship to work oftentimes is a cry for something else. But let me tell you, you follow the clues that your feminine is leading for you, and that is the beginning of following your bliss. Your bliss is just like your gifts. It will lead you to your gifts, and your gifts will make room for you. And I know you hear it preached. I know you've heard it, but then we cancel it out with other beliefs that feels like we have to jump through hoops to be loved, to be counted, to be acknowledged. And it's not until you take yourself off of that proverbial cross can you rise again. It is not until you take yourself off of that, of carrying the cross that was never yours to carry in the first place. Many of us are still carrying the crosses of our generational inheritance. And it's time for us to create a new legacy. And so that's what we have been talking about on a more specific level. This tomorrow, we have a very special guest that's coming into the She Magic Coaching Clinic. Last week, I talked about you have options. This week, we're going to present what are some of those options for multiple streams of what I call magic money. Multiple streams of magic money. How many of you could ever use that? But we're going into that for the coaching clinic. Those of you who have been reaching out to me, I'm only sharing this in Good Girls Gone Goddess because the juicy womanhood white rites of passage has now become referral or interview only. You do not see me promoting it because there are so many of you who are already doing the work. Well, the rites of passage process is opening again for the month of May. It's opening in the month of May. I'm so freaking excited. I'm working on some fabulous guests who will be featured in the 6-month process to add to the supplement to give you more the resources based off of the work that we're doing in the juicy playground of our lives, the things that we are shifting and turning around. And you know, your girl got some announcements coming up. So when I make these announcements, I'm going to also be making some special offers. There's some things that I offer right now that will no longer be available on the public site, that will only be available in Good Girls Gone Goddess. There's some opportunities that I have for sisters who are in our tribe to be able to become activists in this work. So I have some juicy things that I am looking forward to sharing with you all. I'm really spilling over, and sometimes you just have to contain it for yourself first for a little longer, for you to be able to just let it savor it. Sometimes we want to give away to, and I have been guilty of this, of wanting to, because I'm a teacher and I want everyone to get it. And I constantly get reminded from my elders how to savor and take care of me first and let it. And so even this joy I have that the world didn't give it to me and the world won't be able to take it away, y'all. I can't wait to share it with you. But I'm telling you, I couldn't get here if I had not done some of what I'm talking about with you here. So listen, the tipping point is real. If you've ever doubted it, I just want to remind you that it's real. And if you don't believe, you can borrow my faith and the faith of the sisters who are on this journey and your sisterhood. Ask questions, step up, rise to the occasion, do it as many times as you need to until you feel like you have broken free. And so I love you. I invite you to continue to rebirth and emerge, transform on your own terms as many times as it takes. And this, y'all, I got, it's good. So I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I didn't see a whole lot of comments that I need to return to. But if you have any questions or anything that I didn't, I know it seems simple, but that's okay. Kiss, keep it simple, sexy. All right. I'll see you on the other side, y'all. Love y'all. Nothing you can do about it.